Back to Educator.com's Adobe Premiere Pro CS6 Fundamentals course. And in this course, we are going to learn about projects and sequences. And the first thing we're going to cover is, what are projects and sequences? A project is your entire set of videos. If you're making a television show, your project would include the actual elements of the show. It would include any background music. It would include the title sequence, the end title sequence. It would include anything that you would see or hear during that show. If it was a movie, the same thing. Anything you see or hear during the movie would be included in your project. A sequence could be one small section of a project, or it could be the entire project is one sequence. I've had some projects that were one sequence and some that had multiple sequences, such as the title sequence, which usually doesn't change from show to show. The end sequence, the end titles usually do change. There's usually some type of change in workers that are working on a show. The sequences, you could have hundreds of sequences in a project. And let me give a visual representation of how a project structure is. You will have your main project, and your main project will include sequences. You'll have multiple sequences in a project, and each of those sequences will include clips. You have a clip in this sequence, and it will also have other clips to make up a sequence. And each sequence can have multiple clips, and each clip can have multiple trimmings on them, video edits, audio effects. So each project can contain multiple sequences. Each sequence can contain multiple clips, as you can see here. Each clip can contain multiple effects, as you can see here. This clip, the trimming, the video effects, and the audio effects apply to this clip. These apply just to this clip. But these two clips apply to this sequence. And both of these sequences are in this project. And finally, sequences can be nested in other sequences. So if you needed this sequence to include this sequence, which was your title, your opening, you could just take the whole sequence and drop it inside of this one. And Premiere Pro would treat it as just another clip. And you could also add video effects, audio effects, trimming on that. Although usually if you have a sequence pre-made for, say, the opening credits of a TV show, you're not going to do any other changes to it. You're just going to use it as is. You just drop it into the other sequence, and then after the opening titles, you'll include whatever part of the show you want to include. So how do we set up a project? Well, let's go create a new project in Premiere. Here's our welcome screen in Premiere, and we want to create a new project. So we'll click on New Project, and we're going to name this New Project. Now, some of the settings here, when I went over earlier about a video card, That's what this first setting is for. If you don't have a CUDA video card, you only have one choice in this box here, and it's going to be grayed out. It'll say Mercury Playback Engine Software Only. If you have a CUDA card, you're able to, and usually Adobe Premiere Pro will select it automatically, the Mercury Playback Engine GPU acceleration, which is the CUDA core in that card. And what it will do, it will let Premiere use some of the video card to do the rendering and the media encoding at the end. This will actually speed up your media encoding in Adobe Media Encoder. It will make it go much faster if it's able to use the card to do some of the graphic processing. So it just depends on if you have one or not. I would highly recommend getting one, especially a higher end one, because it will make your job much quicker and faster and easier. You won't have to wait so long inside of Premiere seeing your video playback. The next one is the display format, and we went over time code previously, and this is where you would select your time code, or if you actually are working with film, actual film digitized, you could use feet plus frames for 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter. You could use just frames. Some people that are coming in from film editing where you actually had to lay the film out and cut it and tape it together with other film. They're used to using feet plus frames, 35, or feet plus frames, 16. So they would choose one of those two if they're more comfortable. Most of the time, in fact, almost all of the time, you're going to use time code just because you're using digital video. Most people don't have access to huge reels of 35 millimeter film to edit, have it digitized and edit in Premiere. Most people are using, say, a video camera like this that uses flash cards in it. And something like this makes it very easy. When we get into importing media, I'm going to show you how easy it is to import video from one of these cameras. The next choice you have on here is your display format for audio. And you have audio samples and milliseconds. Now the audio samples is, you would think 30 frames a second would be enough to edit audio. That's a lot of cuts you could make in 1 second, 30 cuts a second. However, as you get into actually editing audio in Premiere, you will find that audio samples is a much better way to cut audio, because there might be 30 of them a second for frames, but there's 44,100 for CD audio and 48,000 for DVD audio and Blu-ray audio per second with audio samples. So you can finely cut your audio with audio samples. And later on I will show you how you can go in and cut that close to audio. The next one is if you're using a video camera that uses DV tape or HDV tape, and you have two choices here. Now if you only have one DV camera and you put it to DV, it will always stay to DV. It'll always default to whatever you chose here. If you only have HDV cameras, you choose HDV, and it will default to that every time, HDV. Now, most people only have either DV or HDV, so there's no reason to change it once you set it. But again, depends on your personal situation. You might be working for a station that has both kinds of cameras, just making the upgrade to high definition broadcasting, and they might still have DV cameras around that they upscale when they display it on broadcast. So it just depends on your situation. Later on, when we do capture, I'm going to have a DV camera, an old Sony Handycam that we're going to capture from, and I'll show you how to capture from the camera. And then the next we have the location. And if you browse, you can choose where you want to save your project. It could be pretty much anywhere. It's just a project file is a tiny little file on your computer, so it's not like it takes up all kinds of space. And let me say that when you add video to your project, this is an important concept with projects, is that you don't actually add the whole video to the project. You just add a pointer to where that file is, that video file is, or that audio file. You just add a pointer to your project file to where that is on your hard drive. So don't think that adding video to your project will make it balloon up to huge sizes. Most projects are tiny. They're teeny tiny little files. Let me see where as you can see here, the first video project that we actually have video in it is only 551 kilobytes. So you could have hundreds and hundreds of these projects in here, and it's not really going to take up any space at all on your hard drive, especially if you have a decent sized hard drive. I wouldn't worry too much about clearing out old project files. I had done it before where I had a lot of project files and I cleaned them out, deleted them off of the computer, and then realized that, hey, I needed that project file like 6 months later. So they don't take up much space, and there's no reason to just delete them off of your computer. I mean, it's less than a megabyte, like half of a megabyte per project. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting rid of them off of the computer. Now let's go to the other tab while we're here and look at the scratch disks, because this is something I recommend if you're building a computer for video editing. Is like I have here, I have 2 hard drives on this computer. I have my main system drive, as you can see it's only 250 gigabytes, and I have my storage drive, which is 465 gigabytes, even though that says 500. It's only 465. I store all of everything except the actual Adobe programs. I store on my second drive. It just makes it so they don't take up space here, and I can consolidate everything to a single drive. Now, I built this computer just for this training course, so that's why there's hardly nothing here. But if you look on my computer at home, I have about 5 of these extra drives connected, and they're all 2 terabyte drives. And I know that if I have a project on this drive, all of the video files that go with that project are on that drive also. And when we get into organizing, I'll show you how you can organize on your hard drive all of your files so it's easy to find them later on. So I've set all of these scratch disks to the same place, the E drive, which is my second drive, scratch. And you can see here it tells you how big the hard drive is, how much free space is on it. Now, another quick thing here is this will remember several different previous places that you had saved video project files. So if you want to go back to putting it into the default, which is what is listed here, you can go back and it'll save it in the default. Again, that's personal preference. I like keeping my project with my video files and keep everything over in the in the same hard drive, in the same folder structure, so it's easy to find it later on, because a lot of times customers will say, hey, I need to redo that commercial, but I need you to change the prices on it. Can you redo it? I can go back, open the project again, change the tiny little changes, then export it back out to tape, give it back to them, and then take it to the television station. So it's a good idea to keep anything that relates to a project, because you don't want to have to recreate it later on. It's just wastes time, it wastes effort, and wastes money, really. So we have a new project as our name. We have a location. We've set all of the settings that we want to set. We hit OK.